All right, welcome to the fresh set of downs. Our home away from home, away from home. I mean, we're back from where we started last year. There were a lot of warnings about traveling and what have you tonight. So we decided to heed those warnings. Also, not knowing what the restaurant was going to do, whether they were going to be open or whether they were going to be closed or whatever like that. Not a lot of people going out there. 551 is West is going to be our home for this show, all year. Clearly, we couldn't have sat outside tonight, could we, Darryl?
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that'd have been good. We might have been out there snorkeling today if we were outside.
I think the water probably would have been up to the roof.
Yeah.
With everything that went on today, but anyway, so we still want to thank all of our sponsors, 551 West, our home away from home, Get Recruited Consulting with Andrew, and also Brute Athletic. I mean, basically you're in the crosshairs here, Darryl. You got to pick a performer of the week, and there were a lot of great performers, in our first week of action. But let's talk about some of the great games that we saw and that we everybody else saw last week. The first thing was LaSalle. They played Bishop McDevitt. McDevitt hung in there, pretty good with them, but LaSalle came on top, came out on top, 21-0. I mean, what did you think about that game?
Well, it was a little bit of a surprise, but again, LaSalle last year when they played Mayheim Township, they beat a very good Mayheim Township team. So, we talked about prior to the show that we knew LaSalle was going to be a very good, tough opponent, and they're battle tested. So, to get a shutout just tells you how good they are probably this year. And I think that whole league out there, the Catholic League out there, is going to be very competitive this year.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty. I mean, that's really going to be quite the action-packed area down in District 12, District 1, for sure this year. Central York went out to Exeter, and that was one of the games that kind of got caught up in the the bad weather. Was a Friday night game, moved to Saturday. We had a great conversation with Jerry Yanchuk, the head coach. Hopefully everybody can catch that interview on our Coach's Corner show. But they came out on top 35-28. What do you think about that game, Darryl?
Yeah, and we talked about a little bit in the show for them to make that drive to Exeter and then have to turn around and come right back in the morning, and then for the players to step up and get it done. It says a lot about his program. It gets a very good Exeter team. They had a couple of crucial plays at the the end of the game, I think, that kind of put them in the loss column. But Exeter looked very good, which we'll talk about some details. But it was a very good Central York team, obviously led by Bo.
There, we were talking to Coach Yanchuk. There's a very funny story about that game and it being moved and what have you. And we're not going to spill the beans here, but you should check it out on our Coach's Corner YouTube. I'm going to make sure that everybody gets a link to all of these shows here today, so you can see fresh set of downs, our Coach's show, and everything else. Here was one. I'll tell you what. The best thing for me about the weather is the fact of I got to do my broadcast on my Friday night game and then be able to turn around and do two games on Saturday. And one of the games that I was able to do was Governor Mifflin, really, just showcasing their physical brand of football, showcasing Nick Singleton, and really walking all over York High 55-6, Darryl.
Yeah, and it just it's kind of, when I was thinking after the game, I was thinking about that Denny Green comment from back in the day when he said they are who we thought they were. Like, the question was going to they have a young offensive line, a couple of new pieces there, and a young D line. And it's like, if those guys could step up, they'd be a pretty good team. They stepped up. They were super, super physical. They were explosive. They made some changes to their offense this year, which I really, really like. The thing about Coach Lang and the staff, they continue to do what's best for the players, and they made adjustments to the players based off the talent and athletes they had. And I mean, Nick Singleton, Aiden Martin stepped up. The two quarterback platoon they had going in, they were unbelievable.
Oh, man.
He was so physical in there, running the ball. And I mean, there was a couple fourth down plays where whether it's Singleton or the quarterback, number 3, I can't think of his name right now. I can't believe I can't remember right now. But
Johnson.
Yeah. So there was a couple runs where he was like, I'm not going down. So so either you're gonna have to break my leg. I mean, he was so physical, and it was just, they were very, very impressive all the way across the board on defense and offense, especially against a team that can throw the ball like York can.
There's just not enough footballs for Governor Mifflin. Okay. All the weapons that they have on offense. And to add to your point, talking to the coaching staff was so much about, these younger guys stepping up, but they just whip themselves into a frenzy. It's the only way to describe it. When they come out, they just come out here and they just, they're just hooting and hollering over 3 and 4 yard gains until they get you to where physically you just can't handle it anymore. And that's what happens. That's when Nick Singleton just gets turned loose. And I mentioned it in my story, and the highlight is on there for everybody to see. But the called shot, the fact that with 17 seconds in the first half, they called timeout. They're at the 50-yard line to give Nick Singleton a shot to run it in from the 50. Now, it was a great play by the quarterback, but he took it to the house. I mean, pretty incredible.
Yeah, and like you said, it was a great read. They ran the option. I mean, he held that ball as long as he can. He made and he actually turned his shoulder, squared up to go downfield, and made everyone commit. And he just got that ball off. And then once it touched his hand, Nick was full stride. and he hit that thing like the Hail Mary was an option. Like when will we ever say that? When you're playing government, they can run the option, and that is their Hail Mary play. That tells you how well coached he is and the athletes they have, that they can run an option with 17 seconds left and score a touchdown.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before. So anyway, obviously, Mifflin, very impressive, in their performance. Harrisburg, there's another team. I mean, give them all the credit in the world. Coach Cal always takes on all comers. And now he actually went out there, obviously, to Pine Richland, went to their backyard, and, I think sent a major message, with a 26-21 win. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, they look good. I got a chance to watch that game. And to me, and like a lot of kids I know that train with me, I'm a attention to detail, I'm a technique, and I'm a perfectionist, and just even the way they lined up, the way they looked in their uniform, how solid they were in their coverages. They just played very, very well. Pine Richland looked good though, because we talked about it.
They did.
Everything happened.
They got a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, so they're going to be tough in the 5A. So they're going to be very good too. But I think Harrisburg is a good team. They're on a mission. Like we'll talk about a couple of teams. There's a couple of teams on the, that weren't able to make the playoffs last year because of obviously COVID and the format with the 4 teams. But I think Harrisburg's on a mission this year, and they got as always, they always have athletes. But I think the biggest thing for Harrisburg this year is that O-line and D-line is going to be very solid, very, very solid.
Wilson, this matchup week, I don't know, the first game, whatever you want to call it. Their matchup every year now with Central Dauphin is just must-see TV. And, Wilson coming on top, out on top, 26-21.
Again, another team that's very physical. So that's why, it sets up for a great week. Like this Friday, that game is going to be unbelievable. So Central Dauphin, did what they did. They were the same physical. And the thing is about it, they always play at the beginning of the season, and somehow they face each other again in the playoffs. So whoever wins that first game doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the second game.
No.
So, I mean, but the resolve for Wilson, a lot of guys were cramping up that game. So I'll probably get messages out to, you know, a lot of those guys that I work with, whatever, make sure they're getting the hydration and getting the stuff in their system properly. You know, that almost became an issue because I know the quarterback at the end for Wilson, he started to cramp up a little bit. And the guy they put in, the backup, number 3, he did a great job. I mean, he did a great job, very athletic. You know, so that just shows the depth that Wilson has.
You know, another team that didn't, you didn't think of this. This is not their MO, you know, coming into the year. But Penn Manor, I mean, they just lined up and just said, try and stop me, you know, against Conestoga Valley. Now, it really helped because they were playing Friday night in a monsoon, and Conestoga Valley is really a team that's more geared to kind of whip it around the yard. And it's kind of tough to do, like I said, in the middle of a monsoon. Not that they didn't do it either. I mean, they had a 95-yard touchdown pass, you know, as well. But Penn Manor just lined up. They had a guard in the backfield, number 51, who was leading the plays into the line. And they said, try and stop me. Their quarterback played very well.
Yeah.
The offensive line. That's a big physical team that I think is gonna, like, you know, make some waves in Lancaster Lebanon League Section 1. What do you think?
Absolutely. And the thing is, with a team like that, we always talk about depth. And if you have almost where they can 2 platoon, that makes a big difference, especially early in the season, because, you know, as we, even back when I played, the first 3 or 4 games, cramps are going to be an issue. And if you can keep guys fresh and you can rotate guys in, and we're teams where guys are playing offense, defense, special teams, and you're able to stay close in those games, there's a chance you can win games. And that's what they did. They were able to make a play to get up, and then they made a big play at the end to win the game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to broadcast. I can tell you that. I mean, you know, these you can say what you want about, like, you know, whipping it around the yard, but these nice smash mouth games that we're seeing, you know, old fashioned physical football. You know, I mean, that kind of the heart and soul of District 3. And you can say what you want, but I think that was really kind of the message, that there was still a lot of physical football going on around there, around the league. And then Cocalico, their game got delayed with Conrad Weiser to noon on Saturday, which was, you know, it was good for me because I got an opportunity to get there and watch that game. And quite honestly, I was enormously impressed with both teams. But Cocalico, my gosh, you know, they just make plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, it seemed like they didn't even take a drop off. And like we talked about that last week, we just, you know, what the guys they were losing, the athletes they were losing, what would that look like? Nothing changed. And then you got a solid offensive lineman. Brubaker is going to South Carolina. That whole side, he just led the way and he just punished people the whole game.
He's a mountain in the middle of that line. That's all I mean, he's just a mountain. And don't say Conrad Weiser's a good football team. They're going to be back. That's for sure. And I'll tell you what, I think this was a bit of a surprise to me, but one that, yeah, I think you've got a lot of inside knowledge on. But Warwick actually kind of handing it to LS 45-22.
Right. And then later on, we'll talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about some of their players. But Warwick, again, they have a young man at quarterback. They're very skilled at wide receiver. And some of these guys, obviously the quarterback's a first-time starter, and he stepped in and they didn't lose anything. He was very sharp. Jake Reed, very sharp. And I mean, he just made a lot of plays. And then, like I said, I'll get into the details stuff when we start talking about some other things. But I mean, they look very good. I mean, they look very good out there.
Well, you know, so I thought it was a great first week of football. But, you know, you alluded to, you know, just briefly here about how important it is for these guys. Talk a little bit about, you know, what some of these guys can do so that their games don't become cramp fests here early in the year.
Right. there's some hydration stuff that I recommend for a lot of my guys that they take. Even my young ladies that play field hockey, soccer. It's called the Right Stuff. It's a good hydration drink you take. There's a couple things, other things out there too. Gatorade has something called Gator Light that is very, very good. That works well, but it's very hard to get because everyone knows about it. So it's very hard to get. Those are two things that I think if you make that part of your pregame regimen, those things will help you get through those games because obviously when you're sweating, you lose a lot of the salt in your body, and it replaces that. And it's almost, a couple years ago when I was down in Coatesville, the kids would not go on the field without taking one of those. So that's how good it works. Before I even gave it to the kids that I train, I took it first to make sure it worked, and I know if it works for me, it definitely is going to work for those guys.
And this isn't just a game day thing too. I think if you start on
game
day, you're already defeated. This is something that you've got to do day in, day out, and especially day before, right?
Absolutely. So, but the thing is, a lot of these kids, they wait till like the last minute to start hydrating. You don't wait till the day of and pound a gallon of water. That's not how it works. It's going to be a reverse effect. It's not going to work as well. So you want to start hydrating on Tuesday for Friday. So start preparing early in the week. Make sure you're hydrating, getting enough water in, but you also can overhydrate. So just make sure you're getting the proper base off your body weight, getting enough of water into your system throughout the week.
Yeah, minerals too. I mean, those are key. These kids should be probably taking a good mineral supplement, anyway. Not that I'm a trainer, but I do know, I do train myself or whatever like that. And I do know that when you are hydrating and you got these fluids running in your system, those minerals will flush out of you too. And those are very, very important.
Oh yeah.
Magnesium and obviously your sodium and everything like that, just enormously important in eliminating that cramping. So good stuff there. Good stuff there. So I want to take this moment to really thank our sponsors once again. Brute Athletic. I'd be able to turn around to the sign, to say, hey, here's our friends at Get Recruited. Thanks to our buddies at 551 there for the Sky Bar. Brute Athletic, wearing my nice outfit here. Brute's going to put together a nice t-shirt for the winners of really not only this show, but we've got 2 other shows that we do here across the state for the performers of the week. So and I think we're even talking about possibly putting together some fresh set of down swag that we might put out there to sell too. I mean, we've actually had a lot of people comment on how great the Brute Athletic apparel is. They see us with it all the time, and they'll see us with it this year. So one thing that I just briefly, and I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but the Penn Live rankings came out again this week. They really didn't change much, quite honestly. There wasn't a lot of movement. Even the teams that were ranked that lost, like Pine Richland and that, they really didn't drop any. So
yeah, you can't really drop. I mean, they lost to a ranked Harrisburg team, so in 6A and they're 5A. So I don't think that should affect them too much.
Yeah.
Again, obviously, but if they lose again to another 5A team or someone that should beat, then I think then you start dropping them.
Yeah, no. So there really weren't a lot of changes in the state rankings, and for you and I, really the things that we're going to pay attention to is when we start to get some some power rankings come out, probably after like week 3 or week 4. We'll probably be spending some time around this time of the show talking about the rankings, but there's some really already some really very interesting games here in the second week. I mean, what is it, week 0? It's the second game. Everybody's playing there. Well, just about. I mean, there's still some teams that have not played a game yet. So
and I know before we get to that second week, we want to talk about the player of the week for last week.
Okay, why don't we do that? I think that's a good idea.
Right. So before I get to that, I just, because it's hard for me to just go right to that, because I think, like I said, we got to touch on some of the things some of these young men did. So first, I want to start off, obviously, because it's going to be harder for a lineman to win this award weekly. So I do want to highlight a couple guys. Tyshawn Black over at Harrisburg, number 55, had an unbelievable game versus Pine Richland. He was very physical. He moved very well. Nick Del Grande over at Lampeter Strasburg, who plays, O-line and middle linebacker. And of course, Brubaker over at Cocalico. He did a great job too.
Oh, he really did. He was.
And I want to give a big shout out to Bo Heiser, who might have already made the catch of the year. He ran a skinny post, caught a one-handed ball going into the end zone, but not even like going over the shoulder. He caught it going this way, which is even harder. As the ball's crossing his head, going from right to left, he catches it with his right hand and brings it in. So I got to give a shout out to him. Definitely probably already to catch a year. And he caught it 100% last year, which a lot of coaches I talked to about him, they didn't believe it until you watch the film. When I say 100%, he does a great job of locating the ball and getting that ball in his hand. So some of the people I want to talk about as we work towards the player of the week, Anthony Ivey in the game yesterday, last week versus Central Dauphin, in a tight game, a 99-yard kickoff return to go up 21-14.
Well, that was CD East, wasn't it?
Yeah, Central Dauphin East, and they came back, tied it up, but then they ended up winning it, with a field goal. But one of the things I told him is, in your games, because they're going to be double, triple team, bracket coverage in him, his big plays may not always come through a catch. So it could come through a fumble recovery, interception, a kickoff, a punt return. So for him to be able to make that play and stay involved in that game was huge. Another young man, Cameron Harbaugh, who we didn't talk about too much last week, from Hempfield, 195 yards passing with a touchdown, and then 99 yards rushing. So again, another young man through training went from like a 5.2 40, and by the end of the summer got him down to like a 4.8. So, and you can see it on film. He's faster, he's quicker, he's stronger. He's a leader on that team. Dre Strauss, obviously at the Central York game, I mean, 8 catches, 158 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and then numerous tackles.
Tight end, and he's playing tight end.
At tight end, right? And then, I mean, he caught the ball extremely well. Andre Weidman, effort as a team we haven't talked about, and I think that's a team that for the first, I think they've won their first opening game in 18 years. Shout out to Coach Miller. Andre Weidman had 268 all-purpose yards. He had 149 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, 6 tackles on defense from the safety position. So they're going to be doing a lot with him. But I think around him, they have a very good, solid team. And their offensive line and D-line is going to be huge. Again, first time back to Exeter, first-time starter Colin Payne was 16 for 24, 293 yards and 3 touchdowns in a losing effort. So to see him step up in a big way, I mean, he made a lot of crucial throws. I know there's one at the end of the game he wanted to get back, but, like I told him at the game, it just, you got to learn from your mistakes, chalk it up, and then we move on. And I think him finally getting that in such a big game, getting that out as, getting that first game against a very good Central York team, and they were right there, I think that'll set them up for the season, the rest of the season. Another first-time starter, I said Jake, I apologize, Jack. Jack Reed, quarterback over at Warwick. He was 15 for 23 for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns out the gate. So you're like, oh, Warwick, they might have a down year, and Jack steps in and has an unbelievable game. And then Cooper Eckert, I mean, number 11, Cooper Eckert, he was a very super quick wide receiver, good change of direction. He has 7 catches for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. So you're like, okay, well, so who's the player of the week?
Yeah, who is the player of the week?
So then, so this is probably what we're gonna have to do. Like, we're just gonna have to.
No. You gotta pick one.
We're gonna have to give Nick Singleton just give him the player of the year, right? He's gonna get the player. He's player of the week this week. He had in 3 quarters, he had 281 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns in 3 quarters. He at one point in the game he cramped up. I mean, he couldn't even get up off the ground. They bring him out of the game. He comes back in and runs.
Yeah, he came back in and ran that 70-yarder.
Right. So again, like the guy, like even from when I'm started working with him as an 8th grader. His determination, he's just a different guy. His focus is different. And even being at practice, his leadership is different. He's talking to the guy, getting guys involved. Like he's just a different guy. So him, this game, which we'll talk about here, going up against Wilson and Jaden and Gavin, like that offensive line, they're physical. Like I'm excited for that game. I know they are. Like I told those guys a couple years ago, just keeping emotions in check, because they're going to be fighting. Jaden and Nick are cousins, and so I think that's going to be a good game. But I think this week, obviously, Nick Singleton is going to be the player of the week. But I mean, as you can see, we have guys, and I've been fortunate to work with all these guys, and we'll be working with some of these guys, and it's really cool to see that. I've been very fortunate at doing this, and that a lot of the guys I've been working with are having these standout games. And again, I'm not taking any credit for that, because these guys are the one that have to work. My job is easy, where I could just kind of instruct and tell and clean up things, but these guys have to put the work in, and to see their hard work pay off is a beautiful thing, man. So congratulations to all these guys I announced today. And I think it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, I think that quite honestly, I think that this award's going to take on a life of its own. I mean, with, these guys and the attention, and I think for you too, man, you're really embracing this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really appreciate that, because I think that this is something that's really sorely missed. There's a lot of parochial stuff, on each individual game, but there's really not like a whole district wide kind of award on players of the week. And what it does is, I think it really expands out to just what you pointed out. What great football is being played in District 3. We talked about that. We've talked about that on a number of shows. We talked about that on our show, my District 12, District 1 show, about the fact of like the level of football that's being played from starting in Harrisburg and all through southeastern Pennsylvania, all the way to Philadelphia. I mean, these guys are getting noticed from everywhere. Okay, Nick Saban coming to town, all these guys like you talked about. Brew Baker getting a offer from Clemson. I mean, just a few years ago, that wasn't even heard of. Those coaches and those teams were not here. But the level of football being played is now what's bringing these schools and these coaches to the area. And boy, we need to embrace it, and we should be very thankful for it. We got a heck of a lot of good football being played around here, right?
Absolutely. And it's almost to the point, which again, I know the state of Pennsylvania knows this, but like wrestling, Central Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is the most dominant state in wrestling, in high school wrestling. So all the best wrestlers come out of Pennsylvania. So now, as football is starting to catch up, just, because you can say Florida, Texas, and California football, and, we might be 4th, 5th, 6th around there. But for us to be closing that gap, like you said, a Saban and Coach Frank, all these guys coming into this area now, into Pennsylvania, says a lot about the athleticism, because we already know wrestling-wise, like we're untouched wrestling. So to be able to get to that status, and again, it's going to help where Pennsylvania, like Penn State, being the #1 recruiting class, obviously it's not over yet, but to be #1 right now and having a lot of their players from PA, and if they are able to get a national championship in 2 to 3 years, that's going to bode very well for Pennsylvania.
Yeah, clearly. No, it's obviously it's very exciting for both you and I, because of, like I said, we're so intimately involved with this, and forgetting about the fact of all these NFL coaches that are from District 3 and southeastern Pennsylvania, whatever like that. I mean, the Super Bowl winning coach is from York, and the Bears head coach, man, I'm Central, Frank Reich from the Lancaster Lebanon League, and the guys from Philadelphia. I mean, incredible. The impact that this area in Pennsylvania is having on football on a national level, I think is it's just incredible. I love it. I love it. So I just want to take some time to, like I said, thank Get Recruited Consulting with Andrew Cohen. His shout out on what he's doing for guys. We're going to be playing some videos of his introduction or whatever like that. boy, Andrew, hey, look, doing a great job. He's got his phone number right on his website, getrecruitedconsulting.com. Give him a call. He's more than willing to talk to anybody about recruiting and give a fair assessment to both you and your family on, what's going on. And then obviously Brood Athletic and 551. I mean, we got a real good group of guys. I mean, 551's really stepped up. That was a lot of fun doing the show last week. I really, missed the chance of getting over there. And I really can't wait to do a show from the outdoor area and having like Lancaster City and have the lights come on as we're doing the show. I think that's just going to be
That's gonna be really cool.
I think, just a great place, and people need to check out 551 West. So we've got a lot of good games, going into this week too. I mean, the good part about, not having the power rank is we can talk about more teams and more games. But actually a Thursday night game, and gosh, I was really kind of torn of whether or not I was going to go over and do this tomorrow night. And unfortunately I can't get over there, but I think it's just enormously intriguing that Cocalico is going into play at Cedar Cliff, on a Thursday night here. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, that's going to be a very good game. Cedar Cliff historically have always been good.
And they're tough at home.
Yeah, they're always been a tough team. So, but again, Cocalico is going to do what they do. They're very disciplined, very structured. So I think that's going to be another good game. It's going to be kind of like that Kyron Weiser game. Cedar Cliff, the last couple of years, have had a really good running back. So it's be interested to see what they have left over there and if they're going to be able to stop that veer of Cocalico.
Yeah, look, I think it's difficult just because the fact that you got, Cedar Cliff being a 5A team, they historically really have some size on that team. And that might be, even though we talk about Brubaker, Cocalico may not have the size that Cedar Cliff is going to bring to bear. But that's going to be a very interesting game. I think it's going to be a tough chore for Cocalico to beat Cedar Cliff there. And really another, it seems like Central Dauphin give them an enormous amount of credit because there's another team that, they just play everybody. They have a very obviously tough conference schedule in the Mid-Penn, and they don't care. They go on and play teams like Wilson. They come this week, they're playing, Berks Catholic comes calling. And, Berks Catholic, they're going to punch you in the mouth too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're physical. Luke Hughes looks great at running back. You got Caccione, Trace. And the thing is, what I like the most is their quarterback, Mitchell. He finally has an opportunity to take over there. We've been talking about all summer, just being ready for his opportunity. His opportunity is here, and he's doing a great job leading that team. I'm excited for him and what they have going on this year. So I think this is going to be a great early test for them because these next couple games they have a little bit of a gauntlet they're about to go through. So I think this is going to be an interesting test to see where they are. But like I said, Central Dauphin, we already know they're a very, very physical team. So it'd be interesting to see what Berks Catholic is able to do. But again, whenever you have that wing T in the mix, that can be tough, especially when you have a fullback like Luke Hughes that can run the ball.
Berks Catholic, in my mind, arguably maybe the toughest schedule. Let's just say they got the toughest 4A schedule of any 4A team. I can tell you that. Yeah. Playing the likes of a Berks 1 schedule plus, Central Dauphin, John Paul II, and Malvern Prep. Holy cow!
Yeah. They're going to be war ready. That's for sure for playoffs.
You got that right. But so who do you like in that game? Do you give Berks Catholic a shot going into Central Dauphin?
Yeah, you always got to give them a shot because they're very well coached. And I think if they can stop the run of Central Dauphin, they have the athlete, they have the skill position to be able to cover the pass. So if they can stop the run for Central Dauphin and they can get those corners, they have athletes all over the field. They have a lot of speed all over that field. And if they can block and do a good job of stopping the run, I think they do have a big time shot at winning that game.
I think if they can if they can keep Mosey in check, the skill position guys that they have, holy cow, on the back end defense, I don't know how Central Dolphins going to be able to throw the ball to anywhere. And
Oh yeah.
Caccione on offense with Hughes, I think is, that's, I am so anxious to see how that, that offensive set there is going to flow through, because I
Yeah.
think it's going to be pretty dynamic, quite honestly. My God, probably the toughest schedule in 5A is Mannheim Central. And boy, they got Hempfield coming calling this week. That is good.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really tough one there. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, that's going to be a very, 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 very good game. I look forward to that game too. Hempfield obviously with Cam Harbaugh at quarterback, but Manheim Central with Judd, and like the thing is with Manheim Central, they were able to have their off season, and they're a very, very good structured program where their off season is huge. The attention to detail they spend in their off season, so they were able to get that off season in this year. They were able to get those linemen, those young guys in the weight room. Coach Hahn was able to coach those guys up. So I think they're going to be a lot better this year than everybody anticipates. They were down a little bit last year, but again, I just think having a lot of newcomers in, or a lot of first time starters. They're young at certain spots, but those guys got their feet wet last year, and I think they're going to be a team in the mix again this year, and I think they're going to be very, very good this year. So this game, I'm excited to see this game. It's going to be a very good game.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, it's a couple of their non-league games are actually against Section 1 opponents in Lancaster,
Right.
Lebanon League there. And they got to go to Wilson. I mean, wow, it's crazy. Minefield there. Gettysburg, who I think is a team on a mission, they're playing at Cedar Crest, and that's, I love these preseason matchups, getting the York Adams top teams playing some of the top teams, in other leagues, because it gives us opportunity to connect the dots. I mean, what are you thinking about that one?
Yeah, I think Gettysburg's a very good team. I like where Cedar Crest is going. Their quarterback played very well last week. Braden had a great game. Aiden did well. I think defensively, Cedar Crest is very, very good. They have a lot of guys back. They have a lot of athleticism. They're good at the linebacker. They're good in the secondary. And again, the young quarterback stepped up and he played very well. So I think that may be a high scoring game if the defenses can't get stopped. But I think, like you said, we were talking about the York, Gettysburg just being their last year in the York Adams. So I think they want to try to make a statement. But I think Cedar Crest being home and a lot of senior leadership over there, I think that'd be a good game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the theme that I talked about, in our preseason look, the fact that I think that, there's going to be so much more parity, across the leagues, especially in Lancaster League Section 1. I think you saw that last week where, Manheim Township really got tested by CD East.
Yeah.
Penn Manor, Cedar Crest. I mean, they're going to give people fits this year. Yeah. And I like Cedar Crest chances here, in this game, quite honestly. Let's see, Chambersburg going to Spring Ford. Very interesting. I love these preseason matchups here. Spring Ford, they're playing all comers too. I mean, Chambersburg this week, I think they're at Cumberland Valley the following week or something like that. But Spring Ford looks to be just, really tough this year.
Yeah.
I really like them, to win this game, but give Chambersburg credit for, scheduling not only this quality opponent, but just like you talked about. I mean, that's a long way from Chambersburg to go to Spring Ford. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a drive, but I think each year, since we started doing the show, Chambersburg has gone from 0 wins, and each year they've gotten better and better and better. And that's a testament to the coaching staff over there. So I think they'll be ready to go for Spring Ford, but Spring Ford, historically, that program has been very good. So I think that'll be a very good game too. And we'll see where that falls at.
Wyomissing goes to Pottsville. This is the first time that I won't be broadcasting that game in about 3 or 4 years, because I'll be over at the Wilson Governor Mifflin game broadcasting that one. But Pottsville, both of these teams ranked preseason top 10.
Yeah.
Wyo in 3A, Pottsville in 4A. You know, I mean, Wyo and you know, likes to go up there. I mean, they play at Pottsville every year.
Yeah.
It's a great place to play, great atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, boy, I tell you what, I mean, Pottsville's got a team. What do you think here?
Yeah, they're a lot better because each year they keep closing that gap, and that game gets more and more competitive. You know, why missing though? They're so well coached, and I just like the way they have those interchangeable people. They can move guys around in that interior line at the linebacker position second. So I mean, I think they're going to be a team. They're a team on a mission again. Like they just been building over the years because you know we talked about a couple years ago getting over that hump of Middletown. And once they got over that hump of Middletown, it's like they've stepped up to that next tier team where they're the team that everyone talks about across the state of Pennsylvania, which is really cool to see. So I think they'll be ready. They understand what Pottsville is this year. It's not the same team it was last year. So those guys understand they're going up there, and this is going to be a Pottsville team that is tired of getting beat by them. So those guys be prepared. The thing I love about talking to those guys every week over at Why I'm Missing is that they understand every single week is they're playing for a championship because that's how their schedule is. So every single week they got to be ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago when I did the game, it went to overtime. You know, so Pottsville's, you know, even despite these great teams that Wyo's had over the last couple of years, Pottsville's continued to move forward, and continued to close the gap here. But just, I mean, to your point, I mean, it was very clear to me that these guys, that whole Wyo team this year, you know, no disrespect to, you know, the teams that came before them, but they're trying to create their own legacy. Okay, these guys have an attitude, and they said, let's do it. You know, this is what we got to do. You know, I love that about teams. You know, they're going to run into a buzzsaw at Pottsville, but I do like Wyo to win that game, quite honestly. And then, all right, you know, we saved the best to last. You know, I'm honored to have the opportunity to Carrie and I to call this Governor Mifflin Wilson game. This will be my first time doing play-by-play on this knockdown drag out fight, which really wasn't much of a knockdown drag out fight last year.
Right.
So, you know, what do you think Wilson's got to do here to, you know, to win this game?
They got to have the consistent pressure because, you know, we saw against York. York got in there a couple of times and had some big stops behind the line, but it wasn't consistent. You know, they have to consistently get pressure and get into that backfield to get Nick before he gets going, because they don't, it's going to be a long night. And I think the thing that's going to be really cool about that game, so like you said, last year, Governor Mifflin blew them out, and then 2 years ago, Wilson blew them out. So it's been blowout. So this game could possibly be one of the closer games that's been in a while, possibly. But I think, you know, Wilson, again, Doms and defense, I think their team's a little bit closer match this year. But I think, you know, Governor Mifflin just was loaded last year, and then 2 years ago, obviously Wilson was. So that team that just, you know, lost on with 2 seconds left to go in that Harrisburg District Championship game. I think this is going to be a very, 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 very good game. I'll be interested to see what the running back for Wilson do this week. I think they're going to be key, because if they can run the ball and then they can be able to throw the ball with Hoffman, I think that will be the key for them. You know, but again, they still got to stop the run. And Governor Mifflin they're going to put 4 or 5. Everybody's touching the ball back there, and they got athletes. So I think it's going to be a very good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard to throw the ball. I mean, my gosh, they've got Aiden Martin, Eden Johnson, Nick Singleton. You know, I mean, in the defensive secondary,
right.
You know, you know, but I mean, to Wilson's credit, I think that they're going to be able to match up to Governor Mifflin's physicality much better this year
Right.
than last year.
Oh, absolutely.
So how that's going to shake out is going to be very interesting. I like the fact that both teams are really just going to strap it up and go at it. And probably what's going to happen is they'll throw the ball all over the yard.
Yeah. We
We
get out
know
there thinking
that's
they're going
not
to run
going
the
to happen.
ball, and then Governor Mifflin goes. So, but I think Governor Mifflin, they're going to be who they are, and just say, well, this is what we're going to do, or you're going to be able to stop it. And so, I mean, and if Wilson's able to stop it, that will change the game a little bit. But again, like it's going to be interesting. I mean, I just really like both teams. I like what they're both doing this year. So I'm just excited to see what happens.
As I mentioned early on, there's just not enough footballs for Governor Mifflin in my view. And so if something, they showed a couple things last week. Look, they didn't need to show anything, so they didn't. The only thing that I think that they kind of played their hand on was that platooning at quarterback, which really proved out to be very effective. I think that they will definitely get more of Aiden Martin and Trey Rock involved in this game. Whether it be throwing or, handing it off on the jet sweep or, Trey Rock, right up the gut, which is, his forte. I think that there's going to be, a lot more option to, obviously other players there because, the overplay on Nick, but, it is what it is. I mean, this is going to be a tremendous game, at Governor Mifflin this year. And, I think it's going to be close if Wilson can match their physicality. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I'll be honest with you, last year we thought Mifflin was physical. Man, up close, listening to these pads popping and people flying all over the place, last week. I mean, and they just get like lathered up. The whole team does for 3 and 4 yards at a pop and just pounded you in the mouth. I've never seen a team that just,
and that coaching staff, you see how hyped the coach.
Oh my God.
So hype. It's so awesome, man. It's awesome to see. I mean, but again, that's how it is. Like you just, and like we talked about, like teams just like, all they doing is the same thing over, and all of a sudden, boom, they bust one, and it just. But again, like I talked to Coach Vecchio, and he just said, the thing is, nobody runs the ball anymore. Everyone wants to throw, and everybody wants to do or try to be. So that's why, like, if you're going to have to stop the run, plain and simple, you're going to have to stop the run. If you stop the run, then they'll go from there. But you got to stop the run. So,
yeah, and look, I think the turnovers could play a big portion of this game.
Absolutely.
I think I'll be honest with you. I think that's an important aspect that can't be overlooked for Governor Mifflin is the fact that because they play this ground control, type of offense. Protecting the football and getting an early lead, I think, are going to be keys to the game. I mean. What happens to their game plan if if they get down by 10 or 14 points? They haven't, that hasn't been anything that they've even worked on in the last 2 years. They haven't had that scenario. So we'll see how that all plays out. I know that it's going to be a knockdown, drag out, great game. Clearly,
and Coach Palm last week, offensively, he called a great game. I mean, he had like I said, they had cramping issues, and he had to move piece around guys in. I know Jaden cramped up a little bit in the game, and so they had to do a lot of moving. Gavin cramped up at one point, so they just had to put different guys in, and everybody just, that tells you how well coached they are, because guys stepped in and just kept moving the chains and moving forward. So that's I mean, like I said, I'm excited about this game. Yeah,
both teams with a lot of depth. A lot of depth. Both teams with a lot of depth. So much on the line. And I like the fact that it's not an anticlimactic rivalry. Okay, that this is it. The only time that they're going to play is like this Friday night. It's not, like what we talked about, that between, Central Dauphin and Wilson,
Yeah.
the game that really matters is the one that they play in November, not the one that they
Right.
play in
Right.
August.
Right.
So that's why I really like, this game. And that's what, in my eyes, was a rivalry game, is when they don't have any opportunity to play, down the road. So
Right. And then bragging rights too.
well, there's a trophy. I mean, there's
Yeah.
at least a trophy that they've got there that signifies the winner. And boy, I mean, my buddy Joe Mays says, I think it's been since like 2005 or 6 when Mifflin has won back-to-back games against Wilson. And it's been I don't think that Governor Mifflin has won this trophy on their field. I think they started this trophy after that, but
Right.
that's for my buddy Joe there to figure out. He's great. Hopefully Joe will get on there at halftime with me and we can talk. We've been going at it about this game for as long as I can remember.
Right.
So it's a very special game for me personally to be able to call it, and it's a very special game, I think, for Berks County, because it clearly is turned back into the premier rivalry game, in the Berks League. And it's so fitting that, it's the premier game. The last time that the Berks League, this is the last year of the Berks League. So
Right.
so we'll see what happens. So
Mm-hmm.
all right, my friend. Well, hey, this is, our second show. I'm not going to say whether it's week 0 or week 1. I don't get caught up with that. It's our second
Right.
show. And next week we'll be back at 551 West. That's if we don't have another monsoon or a tornado or I don't know, volcanic eruption, or
Right.
we don't
Or
want
whatever's
any of
going on.
those things.
Mhm.
But listen, I always want to, I thank you very much. I mean, your analysis is second to none in looking at high school football in general in this state, let alone District 3. So it's an honor to spend an hour with you, each and every week. So for Darryl, Daniel, hey, I'm Bruce Badgley. That's it for this week for Fresh Set of Downs. We'll be back at 551 West next week to talk about not only all these great games this week, but all the fantastic games looking ahead. So we'll talk to you later, guys. See